Good morning, Mr. Thomas.
Good morning.
You introduce yourself to the pardon board. Tell us your name and your DOC number.
My name is Michael Glenn Thomas, DOC number 304718.
Let me introduce the pardon board to you. I don't know if you can see our name tag. Seated to my left, Mr. Roche. Mr. Marabella seated to my right. To his right is Mr. Freeman. My name is Cheryl Knotts. I'm going to read some identifying information into the record and we'll get started with the interview process. But first, I'd like to acknowledge the folks that we have here. We have some folks who are here with us today in Baton Rouge who are in opposition. We have Deborah Morrison, Chris Domain, Vanessa Domain, Ray Domain, Riley Boudreau, and David Monsola. We also have Chaplain Reginald there, and who else is there with you? I don't have that.
Excuse me, I have my sister Tracy, my brother Dale, my sister-in-law Carolyn, my sister Darlene, and my friend Sharon.
Okay, and I have that the chaplain wants to speak on your behalf. I'll allow 2 others to speak. Who will they be?
2 people to speak on my behalf.
2.
My sister Tracy and my former pastor Reginald Watts. Get one more, and my friend Sharon Wilson.
Okay, so at the appropriate time, we'll call on them to speak on your behalf.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so you're here this morning, Mr. Thomas, seeking a commutation sentence. You were sentenced in Lafayette Parish in May of 1989 to 2 consecutive life sentences for 2 counts of first-degree murder.
Yes,
Is that
ma'am.
information correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So your case was assigned to me, so I'm going to take the lead on the interview. So you pled guilty to this crime, did you not?
Yes, ma'am.
Plea deal,
Yes, ma'am.
plea agreement to avoid the death penalty,
Yes, ma'am.
right? And the victims, Chris Domain and Stacy Boudreau, what was your relationship to them?
I knew Chris Domain was doing some work at his I think it was a duplex or apartment. I was helping him paint some fence, and that's how I met him. And Stacy, a friend of mine was dating a friend of hers, and that's how I met her, but I didn't really know her that well.
But you did know both of the victims.
Yes, ma'am.
And you know, we have quite a lot of information that was provided to us in your application. And in one place, you'd say that you really didn't think you should submit the application, but you were encouraged to do so by a fellow in.
Yes, ma'am. My mother and a man that was here that y'all allowed him to go home in 2017. His name was Tommy Joyner. He encouraged me, along with my mother, to file my application.
And you also mentioned in your application, as I read it, that you don't really recall what happened, I think, because you say you kept reading the transcript of your confession over and over and over. Is that
Yes,
because
ma'am.
you don't?
I was trying to bring some, try to remember exactly what happened. I have some memories, but it's just parts of the crime that I remember, and I'm struggling to try and make sense of it, because one day I'll read and I'll some memories would come to mind, and the next day I'll read, and those memories that I thought that I believed were true, something would contradict it, and just trying to make sense of all of it. And
All
it's
right,
just,
well, tell us what the recollection is. What happened?
my co-defendant Ryan and I, we was talking about burglarizing Chris Dominguez' his place. And we went there and knocked on the door. Well, I noticed Chris's car was there. So I knocked on the door and Chris came to the door, and I was gonna ask him to drive me home because I gave him the story that my car I was having problems with my car. And it just happened that the place where I bought my car was across the street from his. And I had it parked there in the driveway. And so he went and get his keys, and he was coming out, and he came around the front of his house to look and see where the car was at. And Ryan, my co-defendant, was standing, I think it was a wooden fence, standing on the other side of the wooden fence, and Chris ran into him, and that's when Ryan grabbed him. And I didn't realize he was gonna grab the guy. I was trying to get him away from the house so Ryan can go in and burglarize his house. And when Ryan grabbed him, I panicked. I remember I ran. There was a tree. I don't remember where. There was a tree somewhere. I don't know if it was in front of the house, beside the house, but I ran and I'm hiding behind this tree. And I wanted to leave. But I kept having this voice telling me, this is happening. You're in it now. You can't run. And I saw Ryan bringing Chris inside of the gate. He had a backyard he brought him inside the gate. And I'm waiting by this tree. And I'm trying to get enough courage to leave. And I could not will myself to leave. And then Ryan went inside, and I went in the back, and I saw Chris laying on the ground. And Ryan went inside, and I'm still out. Ryan went inside. I'm still outside for a minute. Then when I walked in, that's when I heard it was upstairs. I heard Stacy holler, and I think she had just come out the restroom, and that's when Ryan grabbed her. And I went upstairs, and he's wrestling her to the ground. And I ran back down, and I was sitting on the staircase, and I'm panicking. I wanted to leave, but I just couldn't.
All right. I think that's enough. We'll move on. I want to talk a little bit about, in reviewing your record, I noticed that a little less than a year before this particular incident, let me say this, in July 1988, you were arrested in Lafayette for aggravated rape and carnal knowledge of the juvenile. What happened in that case?
I wasn't arrested for anything like that.
July 1998, aggravated Lafayette Police Department, aggravated rape, carnal knowledge of the juvenile.
No, ma'am. I was not arrested for anything like that. I was not arrested or charged for anything. Never received a conviction for anything like that.
I didn't say you were convicted, I said you were arrested. And then I see, okay, so you were sentenced in May of '89 for this offense. I see in June of 1992, a simple escape.
Yes, ma'am.
Tell us about that. When was that? What happened?
I had just got here and I was put in the working cell block, CBB. And it was, this place is, it was nothing, back then it was nothing like the parish jail. In the parish jail, I worked in operations around officers that treated me kindly. And I get here and these people, guys are, I think the second day I was here, somebody stole my tennis shoes. People fighting, stabbing each other. And I just wanted to get away from it. And there was another guy that we talked about it. And I told him, I said, man, I got to get away from this place. I said, this place is insanity. I said, these people don't even act like human beings, they act like savages. And that's when we was going out on the work detail. We kept going to the same place over and over again by a lake that's here. And that's where I ran off from. And it was, I think a day or two later, the chase team found me and my co-defendant on escape in a field, and I was locked up in 92, and from 92 to 2000, 8 years, I was in extended lockdown.
Let's talk about your programs. You're a Bible college graduate.
Yes, ma'am.
I do see other both vocational and rehabilitative programs. Tell us a little bit about those programs, which was the most important to you and why, other than the Bible college.
I think it was victim awareness. The chaplain at the time was Chaplain Tony that I went through victim awareness with. He's passed since then. It was a lady that came. The most memorable moment for me where it was a lady who came into the class and she had been a victim of rape. And having her tell her story and having enough courage to come to a place like this where it's filled with people that have committed crimes like that and the crime of murder. And she had enough strength to come and share her story and talk about forgiveness and how it was hard for her to forgive. It wasn't automatic, it wasn't immediate, it wasn't a natural response for her. But in time, she was able to forgive the man who had raped her. And I thought that was extraordinary, that through her pain, she was able to still forgive this man for what he'd done to her. And I will remember that for the rest of my life, that she was able. I thought that was tremendous. She had enough courage and strength to do that.
Okay. And I didn't ask you, but I meant to ask you, during the commission of your crime, was there drugs or alcohol involved?
For me, alcohol. For the past 4 or 6 months of my life, I was drinking before then, long before then, but those past 4 to 6 months of my life, I really just started drinking more and more heavily. And I do believe that really, it didn't allow me to make, it literally took control of my life. You know, in AA, the first step of AA, an alcoholic is to admit that alcohol has taken control. They didn't have any control over alcohol, and that their life had become unmanageable. And it's hard admitting that because you want to feel like you're in control of your life, and yet this is telling you that alcohol consumption to a certain point eventually takes control of your life. And when you're blind, you don't realize that.
When
'Cause
did
you're
you,
blind.
when
Ma'am?
did you admit? When did you admit it?
Admit it,
Did you admit?
she's breaking up. I can't understand.
When did you admit you was alcoholic?
When did I admit I was alcoholic? The first day when I was arrested. That's when I admitted I was an alcoholic. I knew it. I didn't understand it all.
And you mentioned AA. When did you start AA?
There's two AAs, one that the mental health department teaches, and one is a club. And I was with them in the early 2000s, I think it was, mid 2000s.
Club or with mental health?
I didn't understand.
The club or whatever?
The club. I was with the club first before I took the course that the mental health department teaches.
So how long have you been sober?
34 years nearly. Since I've been incarcerated, God has given me the strength I've never done any drugs in any form, and definitely drinking. I can't even stand the smell of dip because it smells like alcohol to me.
So you've been incarcerated 34 years?
In May, it'll be 34 years. Yes, ma'am.
How many write-ups you got?
Altogether, I think 17 or 18 altogether. The last one was in 2003, I believe.
How'd you manage that?
God, my faith, that's the only reason. He has protected me and surrounded me by good God-fearing men that has helped me and held me accountable in this journey.
All right, let me ask you a tough question. You know, I got the impression, as I mentioned earlier, that you applied for this commutation because your mother and Mr. Joyner encouraged you to do that. We also talked about the agreement you made in terms of your sentence to avoid the death penalty. You agreed to life sentence, 2 consecutive life sentences. Why do you think we should vote favorably for you today? You have a good record, but that's the deal you made. Why do you think we ought to vote favorably?
Mr. Schnatz, I don't come in here with preconceived notions that I deserve anything, that I've earned anything, and definitely that I'm not owed anything. I'm asking for mercy and forgiveness. That's all I can do. I offer myself, and I'm not going to condition it. I don't think it should be progress or merit based. I don't believe that's not what mercy is about. Mercy is a gift, and that's what I'm asking. I'm begging you for a second chance.
Is Warden Ambo, or is there anything you can add to the record?
No, only thing I can say that he's a registered tutor here. He also tutors, and he also has a small engine repair certificate. His tag is low. He's been a model offender since I've been here.
Thank you.
Thank
All right, well, I don't see any questions by my colleagues, so we'll hear from the folks who've indicated they want to speak on their behalf. First, we'd like to hear from your sister, Ms. Tracy.
You can go right up there by him.
Okay, I'm a little nervous. So, but first of all, I would like to thank everyone here hearing us all out And Michael, we are here to beg you to give him a second chance. He's not that same little boy before this happened, nor is he now. To the victims of the family of Chris and Stacy, I want to sincerely apologize to you guys for having to relive this. This is not our intentions at all, and we are truly sorry for this. First, I would like to talk about this little blonde-haired, blue-eyed little boy that came into this world on April 30th, 1970. We were all so proud. There are 5 of us in our family, and my twin sisters were the babies until he came along 7 years later. Michael was such a good child. It was a pleasure watching him grow up. Michael never got in trouble before this happened. He always had such a kind soul and a loving heart. We had a great childhood growing up until one day after 20 years of marriage, we got home from school and were told our parents were separated and getting a divorce. I know it took its toll on all of us. I was like 16 years old and I just couldn't believe this was happening. Michael was the youngest, so I know he figured the worst. It was a very, very nasty divorce. It was awful. It damaged us all in some way. We were always moving. We didn't know where we were going to live next. We were such a happy family before that. As Michael got older, he started drinking alcohol and a lot and experimenting a little bit with drugs. I don't think he knew where he belonged anymore. Wherever he could lay his head at, that's where he stayed, whether it would be at my house, my sister's house, my mom's, or my dad. He'd stay out all night, come back early in the morning where he could lay his head. He was just lost. The person that did this crime was not the brother we all know and love. I can't explain why this happened. All I know is this was not our brother, Michael. He once told me it took him a few years to realize what had happened after he got here. There's not a day that goes by or a night that the victims are always on his mind. He always would pray for the victims plus their family. He is very, very remorseful. He felt terrible, so he decided instead of feeling sorry for himself, he did something about it. He started becoming the Michael we all knew and always thought he would be. He needed to change, and he was going to make sure people knew that one night that was not him. People that knew Michael from family and friends just knew that there was no way he was capable of that. But he feels he is, and he wants to try to make a better person of him. Someone everyone knew before this happened and after it happened.
Tracy,
Yes.
I'm gonna ask you, can you wrap it up for us so we can hear from the others?
Okay, and I was just gonna go on by what, and I wanted to thank Pastor Watts, Tommy, which was the veteran he talked about mentoring my brother, because they really helped him a lot and helped him change to be the man he is today. And we just want to ask mercy from you guys and from the family, just to give him a second chance. I know he would make a difference. He would really make a difference in life and in everybody else's life. So please have mercy on him and on our family. We really need him home.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Sharon?
Yes, ma'am.
My name's Sharon Wilson. I'm just going to speak on behalf of myself and my husband, James Wilson, who was unable to attend today. And, you know, I have a little different perspective on Michael because I'm not a family member. But I've known Michael for 14 years. I met him at the rodeo hobbycraft area when I was shopping. I've always been interested in what goes on at prisons, even since I was a girl. And I asked him if I could talk with him about what had happened, and he shared with me everything. But what I could not get over the first time I met Michael was the sense of calmness, kindness, thoughtfulness, and intelligence that he showed in when talking to me, you know, perfect stranger. Over the last 14 years, I corresponded when we could. I came to the rodeo as often as I was allowed. My husband and I have visited him here, and we just know in our heart of hearts that Michael has turned his life around and spent 34 years of a life. He's a young man still, but 34 years, and he's done such productive things here with his degree in theology, his work in the toy shop, and the other areas that he has performed well. The other thing that I want to mention is that he has his faith is absolutely unwavering. His faith in God is unwavering, and he exudes peace and tranquility through every pore of his body. And there's just no doubt in all of our minds and anybody that knows this man that he will become, as he has been incarcerated, he will become a very productive member of society. And there is not one chance that anything would ever happen like this again. So as Tracy has said, we beg your mercy. I want to, if you will allow me, I want to just add one more thing, because as long as I've known him, you mentioned in your statement twice that he pled guilty in order to avoid the death penalty. What may not be aware to you is that based on what I know, his representation, the DA in Lafayette totally misled his mother and him, telling him that if he did not confess today, he would be have the needle tomorrow. And we all know that that is not the way things work, but a young man and his mom scared to death. That's how that confession came about. So I just want to add that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Chaplain Reginald Watts.
Good morning.
Morning.
How are y'all? Mr. Roche, Mr. Renazzi, executioner, other guy, how y'all doing today? They breaking up? Y'all can hear me?
Yes.
Good morning. I wrote you all a letter when I got out of prison, right after I wrote my first character reference for a guy. And I made this statement that I would never sit before this board, write a letter, or do anything from somebody just because they are inmate or because I knew them. Anybody that, not that I'm all of that, but anybody that I speak for or write a letter for, I believe they can be my next door neighbor, next to my only child, my daughter, with my grandchildren. They can live in my house. They can watch my house when I'm gone. They can have a key to my house. That's what I believe. That's what I know about this guy. I met him, I was his pastor for a couple of decades. And when I needed things done, because the church kept growing, you have to watch who you bring in to become a leader in your church. He became a quiet leader. He's a man that don't have many words, never did. And I think that's one of the things that drew him to me, being the opposite of me, because I have many words. But as I sit here today, I'm honored to represent him. I'm honored that he's my brother. I'm honored to sit before you and not have to tell a lie. And I would never come into one of these meetings to tell you something just to help somebody get out. But I know this man, I know him well. I know that he's not what he was. Though I didn't know him from society, I've known him over 2 decades. And I know what he's capable of, He has achieved, he's changed, he's remorseful. He wished it would never have happened, not just because he's incarcerated, because he feels for the victim. That's what victims awareness does for people. It opened up their eyes to the other side. He has been on the other side mentally. He understands that these are not mistakes that we make. Me being a former inmate, it's bad choices. And so he recognized the bad choice that he made. I don't know, I understand about the victims. I understand about the family. That pain is something that I've been on both sides of. I have caused it, and I've seen it happen to my family. But I'll say this before I give away. I'll say this. He is not the same man. If he was in the same situation, he would leave. He would not have stood there. He would have probably tried to stop this from happening. It went too far, too fast. But what do we do with a young man that has become an older man after 34 years and he's not the same man? Do we leave him in the same environment for the crime that he's done? I'll part ways with that. I appreciate you all, and I believe in him. I believe in him. I believe in him 100%. That you will never see him before a board or in jail unless he's coming back with me to preach the gospel.
Amen.
And he has a job in Mississippi because I got a promotion, Ms. Renansi. I'm now director of programs as well as chaplaincy in the Mississippi State Penitentiary. And I have the word on hiring people with the Commissioner Kane. So
Yeah.
that's all I have this morning. Thank you.
All right. Okay, Mr. Thomas, well, first of all, we're gonna hear from those who want to speak in opposition.
Yes, ma'am.
First, could we hear from Deb Larson? She's on the phone, I believe. If you would introduce yourself and tell us your relationship to the victim.
Hello, can you hear me?
Ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Deborah Boudreaux Morrison, and I'm the eldest child of 6 children that my parents brought into this world, reared, and educated. We were brought up to be law-abiding citizens. I'm going to begin by talking about my sister, who was the youngest child. She's no longer with us today because of this man. And I can assure you that there are many people on our side right now who are violently, vehemently opposed what this man wants today. I want to also say, and this wasn't going to be part of my talk today, but I have never in my life seen so much self-delusion as what I have seen from this man today. He is the one who began this nightmare for our family. Be assured that he is the one who came up with this plan. Christopher fired him. He was probably perturbed. He and his roommate sat and stated, and I repeat what we were told by the police. They said, we're gonna rob him, but he's gonna have to die because he'll know who did it. So just let him understand, we are aware that he is a self-delusional liar. On top of that, Stacy did not deserve this, but when she spoke to my mother shortly before she died, she told my mother that Christopher had hired someone who was doing a really lousy job, and Chris was gonna have to fire him. She said when she was around him, he gave off really bad vibes and she was very uncomfortable around him. So let that be part of my statement. My sister was afraid of him. Why would Christopher have thought that he would be the one who robbed him? Something was off with this man. When The night came that they committed the crimes. You understand that he went to the door and he lied. He's a liar. This whole testimony that he's given is lies. He got Christopher out of the house and they overwhelmed him. This young man could not fight his way away from these men. This man is a liar. He was part of the commission of the crimes. They stomped on Christopher. They broke his neck by stomping on his neck. Christopher was able to crawl back into his home, even though they thought he was dead. He wanted to come in and help Stacy. So let that make a statement to him. On top of that, when Stacy was attacked, she wasn't being attacked by children. He was not a little boy. He was an of-age man. And he and his accomplice attacked a helpless young woman. And I don't know what they put her through, but I dread to think what this girl went through before she died. And I'm going to say something else. When he confessed, he said,
Morrison,
yes,
go ahead. Would you wrap it up? Go ahead. And
I'm going to wrap it up.
Thank you.
He said she wouldn't die, Miss Renatza. They had to continuously try to strangle her. They tortured her. They tortured her. They had to end up with a damn telephone cord around this child's neck. When my mother and I found her, my mother pleaded to God that this could not be. And she pleaded to God as she tried to take the telephone cord off of her child's neck. She did what a mother does instinctively to save her child. And I will say this, my mother is in the hospital today. How do I go back and tell her that this man got what he wanted? How do I do that? She has the same recurring nightmare, and I will.
All right, Ms. Morrison, we're going to move on and hear from Chris Domingue.
My name is Chris Joseph Domingue Jr. In May of 1989, my father, Chris Sr., and his girlfriend, Stacy Boudreaux, were senselessly strangled to death. It did and continues to sicken and disgust me, knowing that my father and Stacy are dead while these killers go on living. When my mother told me my father was dead, I thought possibly a car wreck. I found out the details and severity of the crime. My hatred began, and till this day continues to burn very deep. It has affected my life on a daily basis, shaping how I see everything. The severity of this crime is generational. My kids will never have the chance to know their grandfather. Both lives were cut short. Having to see my father in a casket at the age of 10 will forever haunt me. I will never forget how cold his hands were. Please do not allow this murderer to have any clemency, short sentence, parole, pardon, or anything. He was already granted mercy when he was given a plea deal for his senseless actions. Thank you.
Thank you. Ray Domingue. Ray.
All right. Uncle Chris, Mel, hey. Chris is my nephew, but with the son that I never. Wonderful gentleman. I can appreciate what the inmate has accomplished during his stay. But let's remember that he accomplished it in a controlled environment. However, if he would have had total freedom of movement and choice, would he have done the same? Let's think about the two victims and what they might have accomplished. Should they still be here with us? Today, I ask, would you please review these facts? I want to mention to you that our family members, we have family members that are still psychologically and emotionally impacted from the results of this man. My brother and sister, my nephew, parent, who died, broke heart. Chris Jr., my deceased nephew's son, who was 11 at the time, and was with his father just a few hours at the incident. Also, the young lady's family and parents who is still dealing with their loss. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Mr. Boudreaux?
As we go, relive this horrible day in my life for 34 years. My mom had planned on coming and actually speaking to share her experience. As a date near, she lost her appetite, she quit eating, drinking, she quit sleeping. Last week, she actually fell in the hospital where she's trying to regain the truth. I'm speaking on her behalf today. Begging you guys, give me good news, go back to her and tell her that this animal will not be released today. Thank you.
All right, we have, that concludes our speakers. So, Mr. Thomas, is there a statement you'd like to make to us before we go?
Yes, ma'am. It wasn't my intentions today to have these families live through this all over again. And I would never say that they're wrong for the way they feel. I know if it was somebody in my family, I'd feel probably exactly the way they feel. I am truly sorry and remorseful for what had happened. If I could, I would definitely bring both of them back. I can't, and I have to live with that just as well as they have to live with that in my family. I'm so sorry for what happened. I thank you for this opportunity. I'm just asking for mercy. That's all I can do. I thank you all for allowing me this opportunity. I'm sorry we had to go through all this. If there was another way, I definitely wouldn't have taken it. And maybe one day, Chris and Stacy's family will find it in their heart to forgive.
Yes. All right. Mr. Thomas. I don't think I mentioned to you that there are the entire legal community in the Lafayette area is opposed to any commutation of your sentence. There's nothing you can do about it. You just need to be aware of it. You know, there's a lot of pain that is being felt both here in Baton Rouge and they are seated behind you and on Zoom. This is a really difficult case. You have the last 20 years or so, you've done excellent improvement. You've contributed back to your community within the prison walls. I just can't get past what we've experienced here today in terms of the opposition that's been expressed. It's two people who lost their lives. And I'm just not sure that, don't feel like in my mind that 34 years is enough time to compensate. So based on the opposition that's been expressed today, my vote today is to deny your application. Mr. Roachman.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Good morning, Mr. Thomas.
Good morning, sir.
Mr. Thomas, before I deliver my decision, I have to be very honest with you this morning. I've read the information that was supplied to me. And you were not truthful with us this morning. In my opinion, the information that I was given, it sounded like it was premeditated murder of two human beings. And part of a robbery and a vendetta against this. So based upon overwhelming express opposition from the victim's family, the legal community in Lafayette, the judge, law enforcement, the DA's office, and the community at large. We had people from the community writing letters of opposition in this case. For all the reasons I've mentioned, my vote is deny your request.
Ms. Mirabella.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Thomas, I agree with my colleagues in all respects. I've listened very to both sides. In this crime, while not always controlling, is certainly a factor. This was a horrible crime, caused so much pain to so many people. Based upon all of the information I've heard and read today, I vote like
Mr. Freeman.
Same reason as my colleagues, and I'd also like to thank the victims and his family that showed up today. It always does make a difference. I also vote for this.
All right, Mr. Thomas, today your application for clemency has been,
Thank you for your time.
everybody who participated.